At one point this spring, I had 11 mushroom experiments running in my apartment at the same time. Plastic tubs on the counter, jars of rice on the bookshelf, a bucket of wet straw sweating in the closet, and one very confused cat. A friend came over, looked around, and asked if I was okay. Fair question. So I will save you the 11 experiments. If you have never grown a mushroom and you want the easiest, safest, most realistic shot at actually eating something you grew, buy a ready-to-fruit oyster mushroom kit from a reputable supplier, cut the X in the bag, and mist it twice a day. That is it. You will have oyster mushrooms in about 2 weeks. Boring answer, right? That is exactly why I refuse to believe it, and why I spent 3 months and an embarrassing amount of money proving it to myself the hard way. It started with a grocery receipt. A tiny box of oyster mushrooms, the ones the Japanese call shiitake, cost me almost $7 for a handful. I eat a lot of mushrooms. I do the math on everything, and somewhere around midnight I fell into the corner of the internet where people grow gourmet food in Tupperware, and I decided I would try every method I could find and figure out which one was worth it. Before any of that, a quick word on gear, because you need shockingly little of it. A spray bottle, a bottle of isopropyl alcohol, a lighter, some gloves, and a cheap face mask cover the basics. Your spawn or your syringe is the one living ingredient. Everything else people picture, buckets, tubs, jars, is stuff you probably already own or can grab for a few dollars. Folks assume you need a laboratory, you need a clean corner, and a little patience. The grow kit went first, mostly because it asked nothing of me. It showed up already colonized, which is the part nobody explains up front. The hard 90% of the job, growing that white root-like network called mycelium all the way through the substrate, was already done in a lab. I just provided air and water. 14 days later, I had a bouquet of oysters coming out of a cardboard box on my windowsill, and I felt like a genius. I harvested them the way you are supposed to, right as the caps flattened out and before the edges curled up and started dropping spores everywhere. The problem with feeling like a genius is that the kit taught me almost nothing, and I got cocky. Next, I went the other direction and tried the trick where you inoculate a pouch of ready rice with a spore syringe. You wipe everything down with alcohol, work in a still, draft-free corner, poke a tiny hole in the pouch, squirt in a few drops, and tape it shut. Then you tuck the pouch somewhere warm and dark and leave it completely alone while the mycelium works its way through the rice over the next few weeks. Resisting the urge to open it and peek is honestly half the skill. It was cheap, clever, and my first real taste of the sterile side of this hobby. 2 of my 3 pouches turned green within a week. That green was trichoderma, the mold that haunts everyone who grows mushrooms, and it handed me the single most useful lesson of the whole spring. Contamination almost never shows up on the day it starts. By the time you can see it, it has been winning quietly for days, which is why clean technique matters most when nothing looks wrong yet. Feeling brave, I built a monotub. Big clear storage bin, holes drilled in the sides and covered with tape, packed with colonized grain and substrate, then sealed up to spread in a dark closet. For about 10 days it was gorgeous. Fluffy white mycelium, creeping across everything like frost on a window. Then I lifted the lid to check on it and immediately wished I had not. The smell hit first, sour and wet and wrong, and one whole corner had gone slimy and gray. Bacterial blowout. I had misted it way too much, drowned it, and basically built the bacteria a swimming pool. That disaster is where a phrase finally clicked. Clean and sterile are not the same thing. My hands were clean, my tub was not sterile, and in a warm sealed box, that gap is the entire ballgame. The bucket pulled me back from the edge. This method is old and forgiving. You chop straw, soak it in hot water to pasteurize it, let it drain until it is damp but not dripping, then layer it with oyster spawn in a 5-gallon bucket full of drilled holes and wait. Oysters are the golden retriever of gourmet mushrooms. They grow fast and they are not fussy about what they eat. Once that bucket is laced solid white with mycelium, you move it somewhere bright and humid, and little pins start pushing out of the drilled holes within days. From pin to plate is quick, often under a week, and you pick oysters right as the caps open flat, before they thin out and go leathery. Wait too long and you get a mushroom with the texture of a wet shoe. The mistake I kept repeating here was misting. I assumed more water meant more mushrooms, so I sprayed the thing constantly. Wrong. Soggy mushrooms rot, and heavy misting also traps the stale air they are trying so hard to get away from. Which brings me to the thing beginners underrate the most. Mushrooms breathe. They pull in oxygen and push out carbon dioxide, the same as you do. And when that CO2 builds up inside a sealed tub, they panic and grow long, skinny stems with tiny caps, stretching for fresh air the way a plant stretches for light. Utah State's Extension Guide is blunt about it. Keep the carbon dioxide under roughly 1,000 parts per million, or the mushrooms never form properly. Humidity gets all the attention online. Fresh air exchange is the quiet half nobody bothers to film. Every video I watched promised me free mushrooms from used coffee grounds. It looked stupidly easy, which should have been the warning. I collected a big tub of grounds, packed it in, inoculated it, and watched it slowly become a green science project. Coffee fails for reasons that make sense once you hear them. Spent grounds are rich in nitrogen and slightly acidic, which is a 5-star resort for that same trichoderma mold. They also pack down so tightly that the bottom half suffocates. And the nitrogen burns off fast, so even a strong start tends to stall. The fix is to keep the grounds under a day old and cut them with straw or hardwood pellets. But pure coffee on its own is closer to a coin flip than a real method. The nerdiest thing I tried also worked. I took a plain store-bought oyster mushroom, sliced it open with a flame-sterilized blade, and pressed a tiny piece of the clean inner flesh onto a bag of pasteurized cardboard. That is cloning, and it works. The mushroom you bought at the store is still alive, and a scrap of it will happily colonize fresh material. My cardboard clone gave me a small second harvest of oysters for the price of one grocery mushroom and a lazy Saturday. Last came the patient one. I inoculated a couple of oak logs with shiitake spawn by drilling rows of holes, hammering in colonized plugs, and sealing each one with hot wax to lock in moisture and keep bugs out. This is the traditional method still used all over Japan, and it comes with a catch nobody puts in the thumbnail. Logs can take a year or more to fruit. I will not know if mine worked until next spring at the earliest. Still, a single log can keep fruiting for years once it finally wakes up, which is an absurd return on one afternoon with a drill. But the logs taught me why substrate matters far more than a beginner would guess. Oysters tear through soft straw in a few weeks. Shiitake have to slowly digest solid hardwood. Same basic process, wildly different timelines, entirely because of what you hand them to eat. Somewhere in the middle of all this, I fell down a biology rabbit hole and found the fact that reorganized how I saw the entire project. Mushrooms are not plants. They do not photosynthesize, they carry no chlorophyll, and they feed by digesting the world around them, which is a lot closer to how an animal works. The mycologist Nicholas Money has spent years pointing out that fungi sit on their own branch of life, and that branch is closer to us than it is to the trees in your yard. Their cell walls are even built from chitin, the same stuff as an insect's shell. In a strange way, you are more closely related to that shiitake than the log it grew on. A handful of beginner mistakes cost me the most time. Overwatering every single round. Opening sealed containers too often, which let something drift in each time I peeked. Packing substrate so tight it could not breathe. And reaching for a fussy species when oysters would have forgiven almost anything I did wrong. Pick one easy mushroom, leave it alone, and you skip most of the pain I signed up for. So, 3 months later, the tier list. The grow kit lands at S tier. Nearly foolproof, fast, and the best on-ramp there is. The bucket of straw with oysters takes A tier. Cheap and forgiving once you quit overwatering it. Cloning earns a fun B, more satisfying than it has any right to be. Ready rice gets a messy C that mostly exists to teach you sterile habits. The logs get an incomplete, so ask me again in a year. The monotub lands at a hard-earned C. Powerful but punishing for a first attempt. Coffee grounds get an F, and I am sorry, but the internet lied to all of us. One real safety note before I go. Buy your spawn and your kits from reputable suppliers, and never eat a wild mushroom you cannot identify with expert help, because some of the dangerous ones wear very friendly costumes. Growing your own food is not medicine either, so if you are chasing some health benefit, please talk to an actual professional first. If I could hand my past self one piece of advice, it would be this. Start with the boring kit, learn what healthy mycelium actually smells like, and earn the harder methods one failure at a time. If this video is informative, then comment yes. That motivates us to produce more videos like this.